Hi. How y'all doing? Doing pretty well myself. No, just seriously, it's David Krayden here, broadcasting live from our nation's capital in Ottawa. We've got a great show ahead for you. We're going to touch on a lot of different things, a lot of news happening as I speak, actually. Hope you enjoy this. I'll be right back in mere moments with the cover story.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
We need political change. But we also need to resolve to resist. Oh, let's push those numbers up today, folks. YouTube is trying to keep me down with monthly income. My income dropping by the day. They're keeping my numbers at 10,000. I was getting 30, 40,000 just a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, somebody's complaining about this station, probably a liberal. And yeah, but that doesn't mean you suppress a station because the liberal opposes what you're doing. So please share this station, this show with your friends and family. I know you're out there. I know you're watching. I met so many of you last Sunday at Jimmy Dore's comedy act, and it was so nice to see you all. And I know the support is there. So I'll leave it at that. But please hit the like button, share it, and subscribe, because that's really what moves the numbers up, is when people subscribe. Resubscribe if you have to, and don't unsubscribe. Before we get to the cover story of Michelle Rempel's altercation with the new immigration minister, and you won't believe this new immigration minister in action. Here she is having a hissy fit in the House of Commons and refuting her own department's numbers. You just wait for this, but I wanted to bring you up to date on possibly the biggest news in social media and the conservative movement, small c conservative movement. I wrote this morning for Substack. Please have a look at it. Two people unsubscribed to my Substack this morning after this came out. I'm not attacking Donald Trump. I've written probably 500 columns in my lifetime supporting Donald Trump, beginning in 2016 when he first ran for president. I love Donald Trump. But, you know, as Clayton Morris likes to say in Redacted, don't be in the bag for Donald Trump and be afraid to criticize Donald Trump. Sometimes we have to do that, just like we have to criticize Pierre Poilievre sometimes. Because if you're constantly affirming a political leader's decisions and statements, they become megalomaniacs. They believe their own publicity, that they're infallible, that they can say or do nothing wrong. So don't allow a politician to come to the point of seeing themselves as some sort of demigod, that they can't do anything wrong, because they can. But the good news is the feuding between Trump and Musk is probably over. They're meeting today. Thank God, because they were not literally, they were eviscerating, castigating each other to a degree that was kind of outrageous. I mean, look at this. This is Donald Trump's response to Elon Musk yesterday. The easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's government subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it. And this really upset Donald Trump and a lot of conservatives, because I don't think this was necessary. Time to drop the really big bomb, Elon Musk posted on X yesterday. At real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT. Now, I don't think he needed to go there, but what is the reason? I invite your comments. Why are we never getting the Epstein files, huh? How come we were never allowed to see who was on the plane? We know Bill Clinton was on there a dozen of times at least. We don't know if Donald Trump ever took the plane. We know he knew Jeffrey Epstein. Of course he did. He was a real estate mogul in New York City for years. Jeffrey Epstein was a billionaire. Of course they knew each other. Did Donald Trump go to Epstein Island? We don't know that. And Elon Musk doesn't know that. We do know there's a lot of high-profile politicians on the Epstein list, including Mark Carney's wife. She's in the black book. What's the connection? Well, we don't know, and nobody wants to ask Mark Carney about that. And if you do ask Mark Carney about that, you're shouted down by everybody around him and you're called a conspiracy theorist. The question needs to be asked. Maybe there's a legitimate response. Maybe she shouldn't be in the black book. Maybe there was a mistake. However, the question needs to be asked. So, the feud between Donald Trump and Elon Musk hopefully is nearing an end here. But it was quite something. Did I put that one up too about the? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So he mentioned that Elon Musk was even talking about, believe it or not, he was even talking about having a third political party in Canada, and of course that's the last thing the United States needs. It's a third political party. Once again, please share this station with your friends and family. Hit the like button. YouTube is sitting on this broadcast too. I'm going to stay on the air this morning until we get those numbers up. I am sick and tired of putting up with this crap from these people. Okay, I wanted to show you guys this. This is a great exchange in the House of Commons during question period yesterday. I've got a few clips to show you, and then I want to go into what's happening in Ukraine. Then we'll get back to question period. That's sort of the layout of the show today. Wanted to start off with the latest news that Donald Trump and Elon Musk, yes, they're apparently going to bury the hatchet today. They're going to get together because this is bad news for the conservative movement everywhere. We don't need these two people fighting on social media, accusing each other of horrible things. It is counterproductive. And when people attack me on social media, I don't get into fights with them. I don't know how you guys are, but I often, and I don't go out of my way to verbally abuse people on the internet or to say nasty things about people I disagree with, whether they're reporters or whether they're politicians. It's just a waste of my day. You get into this, excuse my language, pissing contest with these people, and it can go on for hours, and it's just back and forth, back and forth. Have you got nothing better to do with your time? So it's counterproductive. You know what they say about pigs in SHIT. They both enjoy it, but everybody gets dirty in the process. So let's have a look at this exchange here. This immigration minister has to be seen to be believed.
Speaker, the Liberals promised to cap foreign study permits, which also allow people to work in Canada. But new data shows that the Liberals blew their cap out of the water by handing out a whopping 500,000 foreign study permits last year, roughly the same population as all of Halifax. Why did the Liberals bring 500,000 foreign students to Canada during a massive housing shortage and while youth in Canada can't find jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for that question. Those figures are inaccurate. It's misinformation. This new government is hard at work to...
She just said it's disinformation. Wait till you hear where Michelle Rempel-Garner got those figures.
Improve our immigration system, and the introduction of Bill C-2 Tuesday was an example of that. We are taking significant steps to preserve the integrity of our system while also upholding our humanitarian commitments, because we understand a well-managed immigration system is essential to a safer, stronger Canada.
Okay, I've never heard of Lena Metlev-Diab. She must be is she a new member? I've never heard of her, and I'm proud to say that. But can you imagine? We're going to hear this woman possibly 4 days a week in question period, and it's going to be difficult to listen to. But watch Michelle Rempel's comeback here.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
So I got those numbers from the minister's website. I went on the website and I read them. So in the middle of a housing crisis, she brought 500,000 people to Canada. These people compete with Canadians for jobs, require housing and health care. If her department's numbers aren't the real numbers, what are the real numbers?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Mr. Speaker, let me give the opposite member a lesson on immigration and on numbers and on permits of visa. There's many applications and many individuals. We recognize that to balance our immigration and to balance and have a good country, we need temporary and we need permanent residence. Some applicants have a multiple numbers, and so therefore I would suggest that we look into those numbers a little bit more in detail. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lena. That was a great performance. If this is indicative and emblematic of what you're going to be doing in the future, I would suggest possibly you should tone it down perhaps just a bit, because you look like you're hysterical on the floor of the House of Commons. But let's face it, folks, we all know, and I used to broadcast the House of Commons question period daily, and so many of you would say, please, I can't stand it anymore, especially when people like Champagne, who was then what was he, the industry minister at the time? Now he's the finance minister. He's up on his feet every day, whining with that horrible voice in English and French. But this is what we've got here with this Carney government. We've got some really unlikable characters in the cabinet. Now, I want to mention this again because what did I say? I promised I was going to mention this every day, even if it's for 30 seconds, until the official opposition identifies a problem here. And they have not even talked about the fact that Canada was automatically accepted, or shall we say, we were automatically absorbed. That's a better word. Absorbed by the World Health Organization's pandemic agreement. So we have no sovereignty as far as pandemics go. And when the next pandemic rolls around, and you can bet the Liberals will find one, they'll find a crisis they can exploit to take away our freedom, to get authoritarian with us, to start lockdowns again and mandates and all those things that keep you at home, not going to church, not going to the hairdresser or the barber, but hey, the liquor store will be open and you can drink yourself into oblivion like a lot of people did during the pandemic. Drug abuse and alcohol abuse tripled during the pandemic, probably because that was about the only place people could go. Yeah. And because people lacked social intercourse with people, discourse with people, they couldn't even visit their neighbors. So that's what's headed our way the next time the Liberals have a crisis. I'll say again, please hit that like button. YouTube is sitting on the numbers this morning, and I'm not going to let them get away with it. So thanks for watching that. I'm going to get back to question period momentarily here, but this is important stuff because I don't know if you've been following. I wrote a column for Human Events on this morning. It might get up today. It might not. I don't know. It's really, beyond. Now, I did show you that, and I did show you that. So, but here's Lindsey. Here, I want to find the Scott Ritter clip, but I want to first of all get the. This is what's going on.
You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war,
you're not in a good position. You don't have the
ready.
cards right now. With us, you start having
I'm not playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're gambling
I'm the
with the lives
president
of
anymore.
millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
President Trump said that Ukraine doesn't have good cards, but the world has a lot of cards against Russia. And one of those cards that we have is about to be played in the United States Senate. In America, you have more than one person at the card table.
So, just to explain what's going on here, Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican from South Carolina, goes to Ukraine with Senator Blumenthal of Connecticut, Democrat from Connecticut. The two of them meet with Zelensky and basically egg him on and tell him clearly to take the offensive against Russia. A day after he's there, this attack on a Russian nuclear base occurs. 40 Bear bombers wiped out by Ukrainian drones, coming perilously close to the nuclear stockpile at this base. What would have happened if those nuclear weapons had been hit by these drones? Would Zelensky be saying, "Hey, we won the war"? No, you've started the war. You would have started World War III, the Third World War. What about Lindsey Graham? He is violating the Logan Act, I think. He is betraying Donald Trump and his foreign policy. He's freelancing diplomacy. He's pushing his own agenda that is not in agreement with the administrations, with the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. He is doing his own thing, along with Blumenthal in Ukraine, and he's fomenting a nuclear war. That's what's going to happen if you continue to bomb Russia's nuclear-capable bases. What would have happened if a Russian client, say Mexico, had bombed the B-1 bases? And the B-1 is the bomber that replaced the B-52 with the nuclear payload. If the United States attacks another country with a nuclear warhead by air and not by SAM or by intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, it will use the B-1, which has replaced the B-52. Where are the B-1s all stationed? Most of them, with the bombs, are at Grand Forks Air Force Base in North Dakota. What if Russia had arranged for a drone strike at that base and they'd wiped out half of the B-1 fleet and came perilously close to the nuclear warheads? And having grown up at a base that was nuclear capable, I know the nuclear warheads are stationed not that far from the aircraft, so they can be readily installed. In my case, I grew up at a base on the West Coast where we never admitted it was nuclear capable, but nuclear weapons were on the base, Genie nuclear missiles, and they were ready to be armed on the Voodoo CF-101 aircraft, which the Canadian Air Force was flying in those days. So the potential to unleash a nuclear blast is incredibly real. But Lindsey Graham doesn't give a crap about that. It's all about Lindsey Graham. This man is beyond belief. But here's former UN weapons inspector Scott Ritter on Judge Napolitano's show, and I love the judge's show, Judging Freedom. I watch him every day. I encourage you to as well. Great foreign policy discussion on this show. Here's Scott Ritter talking about what could have happened and why it can't happen again.
Of thermonuclear war. When you have pro-Trump generals who go on Fox News and spout Keith Kellogg nonsense about Ukraine and Russia, suddenly coming on Fox News wide-eyed going, guys, this is really close to nuclear war. They're waking up. They understand what happened. What happened's not a joke. How would we respond if the Mexican cartel sent trucks loaded with drones to Whitman Air Force Base and struck our B-2 bomber force up to Minot, North Dakota, struck our B-52s, and Barksdale hit our B-52s? Our the air element of the nuclear triad, our strategic nuclear force, and they hit them with the idea of taking them out. And then we find out that the Chinese and the North Koreans supported that. Do you think we'd sit here and go, gosh, we take them off the face of the earth because it is existential in nature. That's what happened, ladies and gentlemen. The Ukrainians went after Russia's strategic nuclear deterrence backed by a nuclear power, Great Britain, and facilitated by another nuclear power, the United States. And the Russians have every right to say that that is a preemptive strike, the beginning of a series of actions that could lead to the United States and Great Britain launching a preemptive strike against Russian. That's why it's dangerous, because how do you preempt preemption? With preemption, meaning you just start firing your own stuff. Guys, this is so dangerous. I know people are like, Scott, you keep crying wolf, because it's a dangerous time we live in, guys. We get lucky. Just because we get lucky doesn't mean the threat didn't exist. This is as real as it gets. Look at the photograph of the Bear bombers burned out. Now close your eyes and imagine they're B-2 bombers at Whitman Air Force Base. What the hell would you think you're going to do, and what would you want the president to do? and then be grateful that there's a guy named Vladimir Putin sitting in the Kremlin who isn't a vindictive, revengeful kind of guy who understands the consequences of his actions. But be prepared, because he will have to send a response that reestablishes Russia's red lines in their nuclear doctrine as a reality, not something that can be violated at will by a nation like Ukraine. On behalf of the British.
Here's Sergei Rybakov, the deputy foreign minister, being asked if a nuclear option is on the table, Scott. Cut number 5.
We demand that both London and Washington react in a manner that will stop this cycle of escalation.
So how will Russia respond? Are all options on the table, or can you rule out a nuclear response?
This is a question to our military people and our Supreme Commander. I am not in a position to speculate. All options are on the table, that's right.
Options are on the table, that's right. What is it about Vladimir Putin that Donald Trump and the American government seem not to understand or appreciate?
I actually think it's the other way around. I think that Donald Trump, again, you're asking me to read between the lines of his social media posting, which is an incomplete representation of the conversation he had. But when Trump says, I spoke with Putin, and he spoke of a very strong response, and then Trump didn't say what he normally says. If he does that, I'll threaten sanction. Trump was like, yep. And he just left that there.
Right.
That means he respects Putin. He understands Putin. He doesn't take Putin lightly, especially now, because I do believe that Trump was briefed by his people and Trump had a wake-up call. And I hope it's a similar wake-up call. If you remember when Ronald Reagan got shot, he was in the hospital bed, and he started reflecting. Then ABC News came out with the program the day after, and he watched that program because he was sort of stuck in a hospital bed. And he turns to his advisors and said, "Is that real? Is that going to be?" He said, "Boss, it's going to be so much worse than that." And he had an epiphany. He went, we got to stop this. And that's what turned Donald Trump around. We began the process of nuclear disarmament. I'm hoping that Donald Trump got a briefing from Tulsi Gabbard that said, hey, boss, they put their nuclear forces on alert and they're going to use them. We came very close. And Trump's like, how did this happen? We didn't order this. Boss, it's out of control. The Brits are out of control. The Ukrainians are out of control. We may have elements here out of control. I think that reading into Trump's statement there, he understands this is a very, very, very dangerous situation.
Very dangerous. Not a word of protest about this attack, this drone attack on Russian Bear bombers at a nuclear-capable site in Russia. And not a word of protest from the Liberal government, not a word of protest from the Conservatives. Of course, both parties want to keep giving Ukraine billions of dollars, more arms to keep the war going, even though millions of Ukrainians literally have died in this war. Tens of millions of Ukrainians have left the country. The country is a shell of itself. It's being run by a dictator named Volodymyr Zelensky, who refuses to have an election, who locks up his political opponents, locks up members of the Orthodox Christian Church, and thinks somehow he's going to get away with all this. He knows he can't win the war. He just wants to accumulate enough cash so he can get out of the country and find asylum someplace and live out the rest of his days in luxury. That's what this is all about. Shame on the Liberal government and the Conservatives for not criticizing this and saying we need to end this war before we get enveloped in the Third World War. That's unacceptable from all of them in this country. Not a word of protest. Now, I want to get back to something I discussed yesterday because it didn't seem to resonate with you folks. This is the Border Security Strong Borders Act. And I talked about this yesterday. This is probably the most ominous piece of legislation yet introduced by the Carney government. And it just got started. And once again, please hit the like button. YouTube is again sitting on the numbers, making sure nobody sees this broadcast. We're going to fight back. Thank you. Thank you again for your support. This is the Strong Borders Act. It's all supposedly about strengthening the U.S.-Canada border. So the F drug, and if I say it, I'm at risk of being demonetized if I say it. It's the F drug. We all know what it is. But do you really think Mark Carney is going to stand up to China? Do you think he's going to stand up to China? And by the way, Mark Carney's on his way to China. Mark Carney is on his way to China right now to deal with his Chinese friends because Mark Carney really loves China. You think he's going to tell them stop sending your fentanyl to the Vancouver ports? Well, I don't think so. I don't think so. But here's the real thing you need to know about the Strong Borders Act. And this is it right here. And I'm sorry, I have to put my glasses on because this is like microscopic print. I don't know if you can see this better than I can. I hope you can. But this is the crux of this bill. This is why this bill is dangerous. The proposed law would give police more powers to search mail while expanding the authority of Canada Post to open people's letters. Do you want Canada Post opening your letters because they suspect you're money laundering? Or you're on the wrong, maybe you're just on the wrong side of the political issue. Maybe you're donating to the Freedom Convoy and they can open your mail to find out what you're up to. But it goes deeper than this. This bill would outlaw cash transactions greater than $10,000. Where do you think that's going? To prevent money laundering. Banks and credit unions would still be able to take deposits in cash of over $10,000. Sure, you can deposit it, but you can't use it. Where do you think that's leading? To a digital currency. That's where that's leading. The bill would give police and intelligence agencies enhanced power to access electronic information, in some cases without a warrant granted by a court. So you're going to be under the surveillance of government agencies. Does this sound like the Online Harms Act? So in other words, you're not safe anymore from government surveillance if this thing is passed, because you might be money laundering, and the government doesn't want that to go on, of course. So to prevent it, they're going to be putting all kinds of people under government surveillance. This is a dangerous, dangerous bill without a warrant. This is like what happened in the United States with the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, the FISA warrants that were issued to FBI agents just because they suspected somebody might be talking to the enemy. Somebody might be a Russian agent. Somebody might be violating the law. That's what happened. And that, my friends, is extremely dangerous. Now, let's go back to some great moments yesterday from Question Period. This is Blake Richards, who is a sort of a family friend because his riding is in an area that a family of mine in Alberta live in. But this is quite a good question about pipelines, and watch how the energy minister gets kind of flustered and doesn't answer the question. Surprise, surprise.
Words don't build pipelines. Actions do. Actions like scrapping Trudeau's Bill C-69, his West Coast shipping ban, the industrial carbon tax, the Liberal energy cap. But the radical NDP premier and the radicals in this Liberal cabinet are doing all that they can to keep these policies in place and to block pipelines from getting built. So will the Prime Minister reverse all these Trudeau-era policies and make sure that he shows that he isn't just another wolf in sheep's clothing looking to kill our oil and gas industry?
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Canadians have told us they want us to build and retool our economy. The PM has been clear. The PM has been clear. They want us we want to build a low-cost, low-risk, low-carbon economy.
It's like he's saying, have I got the right script in front of me? Oh, is this the Mark Carney who wants the pipeline or the Mark Carney who doesn't want the pipeline? He's visibly flustered because he's not sure whether or not he's reading the right talking points. Oh, so I don't talk about pipelines. I talk about I have to talk about the net zero here. How we're going to have a green energy economy.
Canadians will build the infrastructure that makes us the strongest economy in the G7.
Honourable member for Airdrie Cochrane.
Well, he can use all the nice words he wants, but they mean nothing without action. And nothing gets built without removing the barriers. Trudeau's C-69, his West Coast shipping ban, his oil and gas cap, the industrial carbon tax. This Prime Minister claimed that he's the man with the plan, but his plan for the oil and gas sector seems to be the same anti-energy approach as Justin Trudeau. It's time for the Prime Minister to be honest with Canadians. If he can't even find consensus amongst his own cabinet, how is he going to approve a pipeline?
Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, you know what gets things built? Working with the premiers from all the provinces and territories like we saw on Monday. We've heard from Canadians. Canadians want to see us build Canada in the face of what we're seeing of tariffs from Donald Trump. And that is exactly what we're doing. We're going to build a strong economy. We're going to be the strongest economy in the G7, and that's because we're sitting with the premiers and we're not taking advice from them.
They're not taking advice from those conservatives. No, they know it all. This is their new environment minister. I think she's as annoying as Stephen Guilbeault. Remember old Stephen Guilbeault? Yeah, Stephen Guilbeault. We've got a we don't ever forget. Here's Stephen Guilbeault.
I'm a liberal and a proud socialist, Mr. Speaker.
Well, I don't know if she's a liberal or a proud socialist, but this woman is damn right annoying, and she's clearly doesn't have a good grasp on the file. Let's put it that way. I'm going to come back in a second here. Or a few moments. I want to show you at the store because I've been wearing this all week, right? This is one of the hoodies that we love to sell to people. People love this. I've gotten correspondence from people say they just love this. This is the Canadian Bill of Rights introduced and signed by Prime Minister John Diefenbaker in 1962. In many ways, it gets to the crux of freedom in a way that the Charter of Rights authorized and introduced by Pierre Elliott Trudeau in 1984. It's 22 years later. I think it's actually more articulate. But anyway, you want one of these shirts, and here's a little advertisement for the store. When I come back, and I will be coming back, we've got more clips and great stuff from Question Period here. Yes, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. I have to keep saying because YouTube is pushing my numbers down as I speak. It's just nefarious what's going on here because they want to squeeze the station off the air. This is what they want to do, and it's absolutely outrageous. But here's another great exchange between Melanie Joly, and we all love Melanie, don't we? And the Conservative critic.
The honourable member for Fundy Royal.
Speaker, Atlantic Canadians are suffering under a Liberal government that has allowed housing costs to double and housing inflation to rise faster in Canada than in any other G7 country. In Halifax, homelessness has doubled in just the last 2 years. Over 1,100 in the city are homeless, and 123 of those at least are children. These children do not want more government bureaucracy. They want a place to call home. When will this Prime Minister understand that doing more of the same is actually going to make the problem worse?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Thank you for the question. And homelessness is a huge challenge right across the country. And we face a huge challenge in
to rise faster in Canada than
in. There's a reason we have a new government here.
Housing inflation to rise faster in Canada than in any other G7 housing crisis.
We're having some technical difficulty here. Sorry about that. I don't know. We don't know why, but here we go.
The Honourable Secretary of State. The Honourable
We need to be working with the cities. A huge challenge in tackling that with affordable housing. We need to be.
All right, so Gregor Robertson used to be the mayor of Vancouver. While he was the mayor of Vancouver, the price of homes in Vancouver doubled. He doesn't know the first thing about affordability of houses. He doesn't know the first thing about how to get houses built. He knows a lot about how people can suffer because of his bad government. But this guy, to have the nerve to say it's a challenge that people are out in the streets, there's homelessness, people can't afford to rent an apartment, people can't afford to buy a house, to say that's a challenge is an insult.
Working with the cities and towns, with First Indigenous communities to make sure we are delivering. There's a reason we have a new government here, a new cabinet that's focused on building Canada. Focused first and foremost on building affordable housing for the people who need it the most. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, the same old government with the same old failed solutions. This housing crisis didn't just happen. It's the direct result of 10 years of Liberal government mismanagement. After only a decade, rent in Canada has doubled. The amount required for a down payment to buy a home has doubled. Mortgages have doubled. The dream of owning a home in Canada is slipping away for many Canadians. When will this minister understand that doing more of the same and having the same failed policies is not going to result in a solution for Canadians?
The Honourable Secretary of State. The Honourable Secretary of State for the Canada Revenue Agency and Financial Institutions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thanks to the member opposite for the question. Mr. Speaker, I'm blessed to have the opportunity to answer questions in this House. But, Mr. Speaker, the member opposite would have a lot more credibility if he didn't vote against the Wrapping Housing Initiative, the Federal Co-Investment Fund, the Housing Accelerator Fund that is community wanted. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives hold themselves up as stewards of housing. They are not. They voted against every housing initiative that we put forward to help Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So, here's a Liberal hack if you ever wanted to meet one. I'm going to show you the opening question from Question Period because the Conservatives continue to lead off about the budget that's not going to happen. Do you think Mark Carney's going to obey the will of Parliament? No. He has no intention of, because as I keep telling you every day, he has a government from the back room. This is a backroom government. And Mark Carney will make an appearance 3 times a week in Question Period, and he'll talk about everything else except the fact he's not obeying the will of Parliament. And he has a hidden agenda. We saw it in the border security bill. So why isn't the Conservative Party of Canada talking about this border security bill? Why aren't they talking about this? Here it is. Here it is again. Why aren't they talking about the Strong Borders Act? And they're not. Not a word about it. And I'm beginning to wonder what's going on. But let's watch the opening act of Question Period yesterday.
Calgary
The government's budgetary watchdog is sounding the alarm bells that interest on the federal debt will soar past $70 billion in 4 years. Debt interest payments already exceed provincial healthcare transfers, military spending, or total GST revenue. Yet this Prime Minister wants to spend even more money than Justin Trudeau did without tabling a budget. Canadians want to know, on what date will the Liberals table a budget?
L'honorable ministre des Finances.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for the question and thank him for doing a great first step this morning, Mr. Speaker. In fact, they voted for the motion, the Ways and Means motions, to do what, Mr. Speaker? To give a break to 22 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker. We told them that Canadians are watching. They watched this morning, but they will watch when we're voting on the main bill, Mr. Speaker. We hope that the Conservative will do the right thing to support Canadians at a time of need, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary East.
That guy should apologize for collecting carbon tax for the last 10 years. Now the OECD says Canada will be hit the hardest in a looming global slowdown as investment flees that and unemployment rises and core inflation climbs. This Prime Minister already broke his promise of capping spending at 2%. Instead, he'll spend 8% and $500 billion of inflationary spending. Why don't the Liberals table a budget today and show Canadians exactly how much more economic vandalism they'll do than Justin Trudeau did?
L'honorable ministre des Finances.
Mr. Speaker, I have more good news for the member if he was to take the time to read. Not only we're giving a break to 22 million Canadians, but we're eliminating the GST for first-time home buyers up to $1 billion, Mr. Speaker. This is a great measure, but not only we're going to be removing the consumer carbon price, Mr. Speaker, from law. All these Conservatives should be celebrating because I know Canadians are celebrating at home today.
I know, you can't stand any more of Francois Philippe Champagne. He's up there with that whiny voice, as he is every day. Well, I hope you enjoyed this today. I've got lots in store for you next week. And yes, I'll be back again tomorrow and Sunday as scheduled. Let's try to get those numbers up during the broadcast because YouTube is sitting on these numbers. Every time it is inching up and they put the finger on, put the thumb on it. They put the thumb on the likes, and it's outrageous because I'm battling censorship here every day. But I'm going to continue to battle because they're not going to stifle my voice. They're not going to stop the station from broadcasting. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm not breaking any of their arbitrary guidelines or their arbitrary internet laws. No, I'm not. I'm giving you the truth, and I'm giving you as much basic information as I can. Next week we've got Naomi Wolf on Tuesday. Thursday we've got the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, will be joining me for 15 minutes at least to talk about the Alberta Accord and talk about how she is confronting the threat of Alberta separation and how she's dealing with that difficult issue for her. So please, we want to get big numbers for these shows next week because I hope we're doing a little bit more than just showing you yesterday's clips or somebody else's interview. I like to do my own material here, and I hope that's appreciated. And I know it is. You always tell me. We're going to keep on fighting. Resolve to resist. Don't give up. This has been David Krayden, broadcasting live from Ottawa. God bless this country. Godspeed to all of you. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 o'clock.